Remember when the YMCA hated the Village People song about gay men? Now trans is an entire new battle.
As I was showering after my workout, I saw a naked male in the women's locker room. I immediately went back into the shower, terrified, and hid behind their flimsy excuse for a curtain until he was gone.
Phillips said that YMCA management later told her that person was transgender and allowed to use the women's locker room, and that Phillips was not in any danger. Under state law, people must be allowed to use facilities such as restrooms or changing areas that align with their gender identity.
The fact that we are now tailoring our privacy policies and bathroom laws around transgenders, ignoring the blatant threat to safety that this poses, is obscene.
Hundreds came out in support of Phillips Wednesday night.
If it happened to my granddaughter, I would be upset, for sure.
Children and women have rights to privacy. You know, we shouldn't be invaded when we're in the bathroom or the locker room or God help us, the shower. It's wrong.
The San Diego suburb of Santee became the latest flashpoint in a nationwide debate over transgender rights, an issue that is now the central rallying cry for far-right extremists across the country. Meanwhile, the FBI warns white supremacists are increasingly targeting the nation's power grid, and an attorney for the Proud Boys says former President Donald Trump should be blamed for the January 6th insurrection. Last week, a 17-year-old made a speech to the city council of the San Diego suburb of Santee, claiming she had seen a transgender woman in the locker room of the local YMCA and had hidden in a shower in fright. Footage of that speech soon went viral. Far right-wing media coverage erupted, and Tucker Carlson weighed in. A resulting rally at the YMCA on Wednesday saw local politicians denouncing trans rights, while local white supremacist thugs clashed with anti-fascists nearby. The anti-trans movement has become the central focus of the extremist far right over the last 12 months. All ages drag shows in particular have been a magnet for anti-trans activism and far-right extremist activity. But controversies like the one in Santee have also attracted extremists. Wow. Okay. So this is a hard place to start. And when we're constantly in this conversation, this is the new conversation for our LGBTQ plus, right? Agenda, as we always like to say, or like they like to say. But what's going on here, it's a blind, ignorant attack on another human being. When they're talking about all children and women deserve privacy. Yes, everyone deserves privacy. When they said we're being attacked, it's like the language, that language they're using is I'm attacked, I'm fearing for my life. Who is attacking you? There's a conversation I do believe as a woman to have about transgender and, in not just bathrooms, but like a YMCA where there are showers and, if you're not fully transitioned and what that might bring up for a woman, you don't know. Maybe a woman in that YMCA locker room was attacked as a young, was abused, and that's a trigger. That's something also. So there's two sides to this conversation, but what's happening is it's just being pushed by the media and the ignorance, and this is being echoed, and everyone, it's like a torch. They're passing it on, this little flame of ignorance, boom, 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 everywhere. And this conversation is deeper than just this surface level story.
Well, you said language. It's the gaslighting. Al always uses the word gaslighting. It's exactly what's happening. It's all gaslighting. And it's really sad to think that the Y has now become the Young Men's Christian Nationalist Association, if they're out there picketing.
I had finally, in the 70s and 80s, the Village People's call to action. I saw the Village People 3 or 4 times, and they would sing this song, and finally I get the YMCA out of my head, and this brings it right back.
I really appreciate one of the comments that Josie was making, and that is that there was a sentiment I think that they were making about sort of bringing down the temperature of the conversation in order to be able to have an educational exchange. And the woman who was frightened, right, She went so far as to, testify in front of the dais of the city in which she lives in. And that's big, right? Like that's really sort of putting it on a really big loudspeaker. And I think that there's a difference between that versus her engaging with the YWCA privately and saying, this is what I've experienced. I didn't feel comfortable with that. I know that you have this policy where you're allowing this individual, for this, but sort of like, there's work to be done at that level before it's sort of like at the dais in front of a city commission. And the reason why I say this is because that dais in front of the city commission is video recorded. It's then projected out to millions of audiences. And then now we're going to see copycat performances of what she did in many other cities of people saying, this is what happened in this restroom, right? And so all of this sort of has, legs, if you will, right? It's going to sort of have all of these, it's going to be replicated several times because we've heard the argument about the bathroom since we've been discriminated against, right? It's always been there, but there's always these insightful messages of the fright, the predatory nature, etc. But we know that more straight people, right, are the pedophilias, the people who are causing the assaults and the kind of crime that we should really be afraid of. And so we know the difference between the reality as a community, but we know that the general community does not know the distinction quite yet.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me, multiple observations in terms of bringing the temperature down in the conversation. That can't happen. And the reason is they don't want that to happen. In the 1970s, Anita Bryant told and taught us one thing. Villainize a community because it is valuable for fame, power, and money. And that's what Anita Bryant did until she got the pie in the face and lost it all. The situation here is, it's very interesting about Tucker Carlson's comments. Tucker Carlson's interest is not to bring the temperature of the conversation down, because that's not good for him. Right. He is stirring and stirring and stirring, just like Laura is and like Sean is. Don't even get us started on Newsmax. They are doing this because it is good for them. They want a Republican president to come to power. They'll want perhaps a Donald Trump, but definitely a Ron DeSantis to come to power, because that would be good for Tucker Carlson, which is what they got in the 4 years of Donald Trump being president. So as a result, he's going to gaslight. Whether he cares one iota about any of this, it's in his interest to beat the drum on the culture war. And we should recognize that right from the get-go. His interest is to cause that, and everything he can do to contribute to that will do it. He will continue to do it. A good example, last week we had conversation about the very interesting move, and in fact you participated in it with your champagne glass of the M&Ms and the special packaging that they were doing to embrace women and lesbian women and the broad definition of women, which also includes trans women. And that process, Tucker Carlson exploded. He absolutely exploded. What did Mars announce today? They're going to remove the packaging. They are going to surrender to the gaslighting attack at M&Ms. Now, disappointing, because you would think that Mars would be able to stand up to that. That's a different argument and a different conversation. But the fact remains, Tucker Carlson's voice of culture war is powerful. The gaslighting is powerful. Orlando has to stand up to this kind of political advocacy against it every single day. And we have to recognize this is going to go on and it's going to get worse. And we have to decide how we're going to stand up and face it. Otherwise, we're going to see 17-year-olds all over the country villainize and villainize and villainize our community.
Well said.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support.
like this broadcast, and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+ community.